Living alongside cancer, managing worry and living with uncertainty. Hello and welcome to the webinar series for Living Alongside Cancer. Today's webinar is about managing worry and living with uncertainty. My name is Dr. Tara Daisley-Devoy and I am a clinical psychologist who will be presenting today's webinar. You might have seen in previous webinars that the way we experience any situation is determined by a number of things, including the broader situation, such as things happening to the whole country or community, e.g. cost of living or the discourse society holds around a cancer diagnosis. It might also be influenced by our own personal context, including things that happen to ourselves or our families, such as our financial situation or your previous experiences of cancer. The broader context often influences this, but our personal context means we experience this in slightly different ways. This webinar focuses on the way our mind responds to uncertainty, to help us understand how our mind impacts the way we might currently be experiencing a diagnosis of cancer, or someone we really care about receiving this diagnosis. Human brains are very clever and have evolved to allow us to think about both the past and the future and imagine what might happen. This can have huge benefits for us as a species. It means we can think ahead and plan. It also means we can plan for potential future threats and plan to keep ourselves and those around us safe. However, this is always based on assumptions. We can't actually know what will happen in the future, so it is uncertain. Our brains hate this uncertainty, and the future is almost always uncertain in some way. Which means we all worry, and it's important to notice that some worry is normal, expected, and sometimes even helpful when there is change and uncertainty. However, this can become a problem if it begins to impact our daily lives and stops us from living our life in the way we want to, in line with what we value. Worry can include if-only thoughts, so thoughts about past events, what-if thoughts about future events that may or may not happen, and why-me thoughts, which have no absolute answers. When cancer came into your life, whether that be when you got a diagnosis or another person you care for did, like your child, partner, friend, or family member, your future might have felt much more uncertain than it ever has. You then might have noticed that intensity of worry increased. The uncertainties that cancer can cause don't always end when treatment ends. You may find that your life has changed in unexpected ways, which may make you feel uncertain and worried about what your life is going to be like after cancer. This is why we are thinking today about how we can live with uncertainty. As I said, our brains have a time-travelling feature, which means it can imagine the future without it actually happening. The cycle you can see describes what typically happens when life in the present or future feels uncertain. Over time, our brains have learnt it keeps us most safe when it works on a better safe than sorry basis. This means if we don't know what is going to happen, we will assume the worst case scenario to try and keep us safe and protected. We might also assume we won't be able to cope with it, so our brain tells us something bad is probably going to happen and we probably won't be able to manage. So, for example, you might find your mind is saying, what if treatment doesn't work? If this happens, I will not cope, and this might make you feel fearful and anxious right now, as if the what-if thought is already happened, even though it hasn't. So even if we are thinking about something in the past or future, it can affect how we feel right now, both emotionally and physically, and also influences how we act. So uncertainty doesn't just lead us to potentially worrying more, but can also have a real impact on us emotionally and change how we act, perhaps taking us away from doing the things we want to be doing. Lovely. The challenge is that our brains find it hard to differentiate possible danger from probable danger. It would rather warn us of all possible dangers to keep us safe, rather than just the probable ones. Some worries are based in possibilities. We can worry about situations that are possible, e.g., my cancer could come back. What if my partner gets ill and is immunosuppressed from their treatment? However, we often confuse possibility with the probability. We tend to think of the worst possibilities and assume it is the most probable outcome, and we then predict what will happen, e.g., my cancer will come back, my partner will get ill when they are immune suppressed from their treatment. When you notice yourself doing this, try thinking through what would be the most likely thing to happen. E.g., my cancer could come back. I know already the team could help me manage just like the first time. Or, if my partner gets ill, we will be supported by the medical team and they know what to do. Or, try to notice all the possibilities your mind is not thinking of, e.g., I'm thinking the worst case scenario. What's the best case scenario? There is often a temptation to not allow ourselves to feel those more tricky emotions or acknowledge those difficult thoughts and worries. For example, there may be a temptation to only allow ourselves to focus on the positives or to try really hard to distract ourselves from those worried thoughts. However, it can be important to allow space for those more uncomfortable thoughts and feelings when we can and feel safe to do so. So why is this the case? The problem with trying to avoid our thoughts and feelings is that it often doesn't work. We can end up either tangled up with those feelings and thoughts and unable to pay attention to anything else, or we start avoiding anything that might bring it up and so miss out on lots of the things that make life worthwhile. Often, the harder we try not to think or feel something, the more it pops back up. And trying not to think or feel something is a lot of hard work, often meaning we have to focus on this rather than focusing on the things that are important to us. So, if you can, find ways to allow yourself to feel what you are feeling. It is okay to feel anxious, angry, uptight, or sad. These are real feelings and they are telling us something important. Take time to just notice how you are feeling. Create spaces in your day for regular check-ins. Maybe talk it through with someone you trust or write it down. Sometimes just noticing and acknowledging how you are feeling can help manage those feelings. Importantly, be non-judgmental in your noticing. There is no right or wrong way to feel, all emotions are okay. The dropping anchor exercise by Russ Harris is one way we can do this. When a boat is caught up in a storm, it keeps us safe in the harbour by dropping an anchor. This doesn't stop the storm happening around it, but it holds the boat steady and prevents it from being swept away. Similarly, when we are surrounded by a storm of emotions, as many people are currently, we may feel at risk of being swept away by those feelings. However, there are ways we can learn to drop our own anchor and to keep ourselves steady and focused on the here and now in the storm of emotion. There are 3 main steps to follow when we are dropping anchor, and these can be summarised by the acronym ACE. We can quickly try this together now. Firstly, we acknowledge our inner experiences. By this, we mean gently and curiously becoming aware of what is happening inside our minds and bodies. This might be thoughts, emotional feelings, physical feelings, or memories. This is not about judging or analysing how you are thinking and feeling, but simply about developing awareness of these experiences. As you become more aware, try to also come back into your body. Connecting with and purposefully moving your physical body is a really effective way of starting to bring your focus back to the present moment, rather than getting caught up in those tricky thoughts. Some ways of doing this can include slowly pushing your feet hard into the floor, slowly pressing your fingertips together, consciously and gently controlling your breathing. After acknowledging your internal experiences and coming back into your body, try to broaden your present moment focus by attending to where you are and then engage in what you are doing. Some ideas for helping you to refocus on your surroundings include: look around the room and notice 5 things you can see. Notice the sounds there are around you. As you end this exercise, bring your attention back to the thing you are doing in this moment, whether it's preparing your child's lunch, having a conversation, or doing the food shop. If you are not doing anything at the time the emotional storm struck, maybe pick an activity aimed to nourish and soothe yourself, like having a cup of tea, looking at a photo of a joyful time, or opening a window and breathing in the fresh air. You will probably need to practice this exercise a number of times to figure out how it works best for you. There's loads of ways to drop anchor, so be playful and curious about what comes up as you practice it more and more. Does worry help? When things are uncertain, a way we try to cope is worry. Some worry can actually be helpful if we can do something about the worries. This is the worry tree, which can help you work through your worries. The first step in the worry tree is noticing what the negative thought or worry is. This is already a little bit different from what we might normally do, as we are actively noticing and acknowledging the thought, rather than trying to get rid of it. Sometimes writing it down at this stage can be helpful. This allows us some distance from the thought, a little bit like taking a step back from it. The next step is asking yourself if there is anything I can do about this worry or negative thought. Is it within my control? As discussed in the last session, our negative thoughts, particularly in the face of uncertainty, are often about the past or future, e.g. what-if thoughts, and often these are outside of our control. However, this is not always the case, and sometimes there is something we can do, or the thought might be helpful, in which case we can make the decision to act on it. The important thing here is that by noticing the thought, this allows us to make a decision about whether we want to engage with it or not. If the answer is no, problem solving cannot be done, and the best strategy is to try and let go of the worry using mindfulness skills. Please see our mindfulness webinar for tips, or you can use the Headspace app. If the answer is yes, then we can move on to an action plan and problem solve the issue. We can usually do something about the worry if the problem is probable, not just possible, is within our control and is not too far in the future. This gives you a framework for your problem solving. Once you have identified the problem, you need to try to brainstorm as many possibilities that might help you solve the problem as possible. Sometimes our silliest ideas are the ones that are most accessible. Then, look at the advantages or disadvantages of each idea. Then, choose one, plan how to carry it out, then test it out and review how it went. Another idea that can help us manage our worry is worry time. You will need to pick a time each day which will be your worry time. This will be the same time and duration each day and be free from distraction, and ideally will not just be before bed. Outside of worry time, when you notice a worry, briefly jot it down on your worry time list and remind yourself, I'll worry about this later, there are more valuable things to do now. When you get to worry time, you can worry, but only for the allotted time, say 20 minutes to keep it manageable. If in your worry time you haven't had a chance to worry about everything on your list, that is fine. At the end of your worry time, just pop it on your list for the next day, and then your mind can let it go for now. You can also practice doing this with children. Worry we can't solve is unhelpful worry, and we need to manage this in different ways. The top tips from today are: try to understand the worry. Is it helpful or unhelpful? Is your mind thinking of the possible or probable? Be kind to yourself. It makes sense that you're worrying. Use relaxation to calm the body and mind. Try practice dropping an anchor like we did today. See your thoughts as thoughts, no more and no less. Let go of worry. Mindfulness helps. Check out our mindfulness webinar or the Headspace app. And what do I mean by letting thoughts go? I like to think of this as giving you some distance from the thought. We aren't trying to get rid of the thoughts or push them away. We already know that doesn't work so well. But instead, allow them to come and go without getting too caught up in them. There are lots of strategies that can be helpful for allowing us to let go of those what-if worries. I will introduce one way of doing this today. It's important to recognise that this can be tricky, and so it's important to practice and give it some time. Okay, so let's try this now. So first, notice the worry. Take a step back mentally, perhaps taking a deep breath. We may have automatic coping strategies for managing these thoughts, so it can be helpful to just pause and not act immediately. Name it. For example, there's one of those what-if thoughts again. Try not to make any judgments. It's okay that the thought is there. And now refocus on the current moment. Try to focus on being in the present. It can be helpful to bring in all of your senses when you're doing this. Focus on noticing one thing you can see, one thing you can feel, one thing you can hear, one thing you can smell, and one thing you can taste. We ideally need to let worry go, but this can be really hard, especially when the worries are to do with the health and survival of you or somebody you love. We hope some of the tips in this webinar will help to let go of a few worries and lighten the load a little. If you are looking for further support and are a patient of Bristol Haematology and Oncology Centre, or the oncology teams at Bristol Royal Hospital for Children, or a family member, supporter or carer, you can inquire about additional psychological support by contacting your clinical nurse specialist or Macmillan support worker team. Anyone can access our handy wellbeing toolkits designed to help navigate wellbeing alongside a health condition. We have toolkits specifically for adults, children, teenagers and parents, and the range of topics is as broad as managing stress and worry, dealing with pain, preparing to come into hospital, and talking to friends or children about illness. We hope that this webinar has not caused too much distress, but in the event that you feel you would benefit from immediate support or you feel you're in crisis, there are a number of contacts you can use. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, you can contact your crisis or intensive support team by calling NHS 111 and selecting the mental health option. Please do call 999 or attend A&E if you feel you are at imminent risk of harm. For other immediate support, you can contact Samaritans on 116 123 or text SHOUT on 85258. Both services can offer a listening ear at a time of need. If it is within working hours, please do contact your GP, who may be able to signpost you to local services. Many thanks for listening to this webinar today.